My name is Daniel James. I'm 52 years old, and on the night of March 12th, 2024, my heart stopped behind the pulpit of the church I had pastored for nearly 2 decades. For 18 years, I poured everything into Grace Fellowship Chapel. 3 Sunday services, Wednesday Bible study, hospital visits, marriage counseling. My life was the church. My wife, Linda, and I raised our kids in that old white parsonage next door. We built a life that revolved around ministry. I thought I knew God well. I thought I understood His heart. I was wrong. That evening, I had just wrapped up a sermon titled, "Standing Firm in Divided Times." I remember the last line I spoke. Even when the world shakes, our faith must stand strong. As I led the closing prayer, a tightness gripped my chest. I brushed it off, forced myself through the final amen. And then, everything collapsed. A crushing pain shot down my left arm. I staggered backward, my vision narrowing to black. I felt my knees give way, and then silence. Not just quiet, complete silence. No heartbeat, no breath, no sound. But I wasn't afraid. In fact, I wasn't in pain anymore. I felt light, free, like I was floating upward. I looked down and saw my own body lying crumpled behind the pulpit. Linda was screaming, her face frozen in panic. Deacon Harris was doing chest compressions. Someone was yelling for an ambulance, but I wasn't part of that chaos. I was just watching, peacefully. Then I heard it. My name. Daniel. Not with my ears, but inside me, like it was spoken into the very fabric of who I was. I turned toward the voice, and I saw Him. Jesus. He was light, but not blinding. Radiant, but approachable. His presence held no fear, only warmth, like the embrace of someone who had always known me. When I saw His eyes, I broke, because He didn't just look at me, He saw through me. And in that moment, I realized I had died. But something much bigger had just begun. When Jesus called my name, it echoed. Not in my ears, but somewhere deep inside my soul. I turned around, and there He stood. No blinding light, no booming thunder, just Him. Gentle, radiant, with eyes that pierced right through every layer of me. They weren't judging. They weren't accusing. They were full of knowing, of love. And when I looked into them, I knew. He saw everything. Every sermon I'd preached in pride. Every harsh word I thought I had spoken righteously. Every time I'd secretly written someone off because they voted differently or believed differently. He saw it all. And still, He smiled. Daniel, He said. And somehow, that name, my name, had weight coming from Him, like it was the first time anyone had truly spoken it. I tried to speak, but the tears came first. I was crying without a body somehow, and He stepped closer, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Walk with me," He said. We didn't walk, not really. We moved, together, across what looked like clouds, but more real than clouds ever felt. The air shimmered with colors that don't exist on Earth. Deep blues richer than any ocean, gold that pulsed like it was alive. And there was peace. The kind of peace you don't know you've been missing until you finally feel it. He said I had been faithful in my service, that I'd honored Him. But He also said, there are things my people need to understand, things I want you to see. Then, in a breath, we were hovering above the United States. The entire nation stretched out beneath us, cities, towns, fields, mountains. But what hit me wasn't the geography. It was the hearts. Somehow, I could see people's hearts, the anxiety, the fear, the bitterness, the hatred, even among believers, maybe especially among believers. "What do you see, Daniel?" He asked. And I said the first thing that came to me, because it was undeniable. "Division, Lord. I see so much anger and division." He nodded, not surprised, not angry, just deeply saddened. "Yes, and now I'm going to show you why." Jesus looked into me, not just my memories, but my motives, my fears, even the pride I thought I'd hidden so well behind the veil of good works. but instead of condemnation, I felt this overwhelming sense of love. Pure, unfiltered, undeserved love. We continued moving, though I wasn't walking, more like gliding beside him. The space around us shifted again, and suddenly we were no longer hovering over cities and towns. We were in what looked like a vast library, but not one built by human hands. There were no books. Instead, shelves reached up endlessly into a glowing mist, filled with radiant scrolls, each pulsing faintly like they were alive. Jesus turned to me. "These," he said, "are the prayers of my people." As I listened, I began to hear them, not just read them, but truly hear them, thousands of voices, layered like a divine harmony. God, let the conservatives win so we can save the country. Lord, give the liberals power so we can bring justice to the poor. Voices desperate, angry, confident that God was surely on their political side. Jesus reached out and took one scroll from the shelf. As he held it, the scroll glowed brighter. "Listen to this one, Daniel," he said. It was different. A voice, shaky but sincere, whispered, "God, I don't know what to think anymore. I just want to love people the way you do. Help me see past politics. Help me be your hands and feet." The scroll blazed in his hands, so bright it made my chest ache. "This is the prayer that moves my heart," he said gently. "Not the ones asking me to bless a party, but the ones asking me to help them love." I didn't know what to say. I was a pastor. I had led prayers like the first ones, strong, confident, sure we were on the right side. But this was humility, and it broke me. "Lord," I asked, "don't you care about issues? About abortion? About justice? Freedom? The poor?" He looked at me, not with anger, but intensity. "I care deeply, Daniel, about every life, born and unborn, about the prisoner, the widow, the refugee, but my people have forgotten something." He raised his hand, and the vision began to shift again. And what he showed me next shook me to my core. The vision sharpened. Jesus and I stood between two churches facing each other across a narrow street. One flew a massive American flag beside a red "Make America Great Again" banner. The other was draped in rainbow flags, its windows filled with signs reading "Justice for All" and "Love Wins." "They both worship me," Jesus said, "but look closer." He motioned to the first church. I saw inside, believers full of conviction, passionate about protecting unborn lives, about defending religious liberty. I could feel their sincerity, their pain over a culture they felt slipping away. Their love was real, but so was their fear. Then we turned to the second church. Inside were believers just as passionate, fighting for the marginalized, weeping for victims of injustice. Their hearts ached for the poor, the oppressed, the forgotten. Their compassion was real, but so was their anger. "They're both right," I whispered, "and both lost in something." Jesus nodded. "They've allowed politics to divide what I died to unite." He touched my shoulder. In that instant, I could feel what he felt, for both congregations, and it wrecked me. His love poured out not just for the conservative grandmother praying daily for unborn children, but also for the progressive teenager volunteering at a homeless shelter. Not just for the pastor preaching biblical values, but for the teacher spending her last dollar to buy supplies for students no one else noticed. "My kingdom," Jesus said, "is not of this world, and yet my people keep trying to force it to fit inside political platforms. They've made me a mascot for parties I do not endorse, but I belong to the broken." He stepped forward and lifted his hands. "Republicans need me. Democrats need me. Libertarians, independents. Every soul you see, Daniel, needs the same thing, grace." I was shaking now. I thought I had preached balance. I thought I had taught love. But I realized I had seen too many people as political identities, and not as image-bearers of the God I claim to serve. Jesus turned to me and said, "You still have more to see." And as the cloud shifted once again, I braced myself, because I could feel the weight of what was coming next. We moved again, this time into what looked like an infinite library, except there were no books, only glowing scrolls stacked on endless shelves. The room pulsed softly with light, like the walls themselves were alive. Jesus walked beside me, his presence still overwhelming, but familiar now, comforting, like an anchor in a sea of awe. He reached for one scroll, and as he unrolled it, I heard a voice. God, please let the Republicans win so we can protect our freedoms. Another scroll. Lord, give the Democrats victory so the poor won't be forgotten. Thousands of scrolls, thousands of voices, pleading with certainty that they had God's political favor. The prayers felt desperate, angry even, as if the world's survival hinged not on faith, but on votes. Jesus looked at me. These are the cries of my people, but listen closely. He opened another scroll, and this time the voice was softer, uncertain, trembling. God, I don't know what to believe anymore. I'm tired. Help me love like you love. Help me see people, not sides. Help me be kind, even when I don't understand. The scroll glowed, brighter than all the others. My throat tightened. This, Jesus whispered, this is the kind of prayer that moves my heart. He laid the scroll in my hands. I felt it, like holding a living breath of heaven. Not policy, not strategy, just raw, honest surrender. But Lord, I asked, my old pastoral instincts still kicking in, don't you care about the issues? About the unborn? About the poor? About justice and freedom? He nodded, his expression full of fierce love. I care about every life, born and unborn, the widow, the refugee, the prisoner. I care about justice and mercy, freedom and truth. But you cannot legislate the kingdom of heaven. His eyes met mine. My people asked me to choose sides, but I came to tear down walls, not build new ones. Tears welled in my eyes. I had spent years preaching conviction, but I realized I hadn't taught surrender. Not the kind that lets go of pride, fear, and party lines, just to love better. And then Jesus said, there is one more thing I must show you, Daniel, but it will be hard. I held the scroll tighter. I'm ready. Without a word, Jesus touched my shoulder, and we were standing in front of two churches. They sat across the street from one another. One was draped in American flags, pro-life signs, and bold banners that read, God and Country. The other flew rainbow flags, posters that said, Love is love, and a sign reading, All are welcome. He looked at me. Both of these churches pray to me. Both say they follow me, but I want you to look deeper. I stepped closer to the first church, and instantly I could see inside, not with my eyes, but with my spirit. I saw faithful people, families who loved Scripture, who mourned the loss of unborn life, who longed to preserve religious freedom. Their prayers were sincere, and their hearts were broken for what they believed was truth being trampled. Then I turned to the second church, and again, I saw inside. I saw people who wept for justice, who opened their homes to the homeless, who stood up for the oppressed. Their hearts ached for those society had cast aside. Their faith burned just as bright. I turned back to Jesus, confused. They're both right, and they're both wrong? He nodded. Yes, they are each holding pieces of my heart, Daniel, but neither sees the whole. The tragedy is not in their passion, it's in their division. His voice broke with sadness. They've made politics their identity, not me. They've treated each other as enemies when they are family. He raised his hand, and I felt it. I felt his heart break. Not disappointment, not anger, but deep, soul-piercing grief. I could barely stand under the weight of it. They've forgotten, he whispered, that my kingdom is not of this world, but it is for this world. I fell to my knees. My own sermons, my own posts, my own judgments, they all rushed back like a flood. I had contributed to the wall, not torn it down. I failed you, I cried. Jesus knelt beside me. You loved me the best you knew how, but now I'm calling you to love deeper, wider, fuller. He stood, offering me his hand. Come, there's more you need to see. We stood now in what looked like a great garden, blooming with colors I had never imagined, flowers that hummed with sound, air that carried peace like a fragrance. But Jesus' face turned serious. Daniel, he said gently, what I show you next will break your heart. Suddenly, the garden faded, and I was watching scenes from churches all across America. I saw believers yelling at one another over masks, over vaccines, over elections. I saw friends become strangers over Facebook arguments. I saw pastors bullied from their pulpits for refusing to preach politics. I saw Christians celebrating the death of their political enemies. It was unbearable. They think they're fighting for truth, Jesus said, voice heavy with sorrow. But they've forgotten love. They're fighting each other instead of fighting for each other. His next words pierced deep. They've made being right more important than being righteous. Tears filled my eyes. What do I tell them, Lord? How do I go back and explain this? He turned to me, placing a hand on my chest. Tell them to love beyond the lines. Tell them their neighbor is not defined by party, but by humanity. Tell them the ballot is not their greatest weapon. Prayer is. Compassion is. The gospel is. I felt something surge in me, like light, like fire. He continued, when they vote, let it be in humility. When they speak, let it be in grace. When they stand, let it be in love. And remind them, my kingdom isn't built on elections. It's built on changed hearts. The garden returned. We were back among the flowers and the singing light. Lord, I whispered, I don't want to leave. I want to stay here. It's perfect. Jesus smiled sadly. You will return one day, my son, but not today. I need you to carry this message. Some will reject it. Some will attack you, but speak it anyway. Then, he said something I will never forget. In heaven, there are no Republicans, no Democrats, no independents. Only the redeemed, united, not by politics, but by my love. With that, everything dissolved into light. I gasped awake in the hospital, my chest burning, the doctor shouting that I was alive. I had been dead for 19 minutes, but I had returned with a mission, to remind God's people that we are citizens of heaven first, and love is our greatest calling.